Welcome back to our journey through history's most fascinating civilizations. Tonight, we're traveling to ancient Greece, to a place where the very mention of its name struck fear into the hearts of enemies across the Mediterranean. We're going to Sparta. Close your eyes and imagine waking up not in your comfortable bed, but on a thin mat in a communal barracks. The year is 450 BCE. You're not a tourist or a historian. You're a Spartan. And I'm here to tell you why, despite all your modern advantages, you probably wouldn't survive a single day in this legendary warrior society. This isn't just about battles and bronze shields. Tonight, we'll explore the daily reality of Spartan life, the brutal training, the unforgiving social structure, the constant struggle for survival that began before birth and never truly ended. We'll discover how every aspect of Spartan existence was designed to forge the ancient world's most fearsome warriors. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's step back in time to understand what it really meant to be Spartan. Because by the end of this journey, you'll realize that the Spartans weren't just tough. They were living a lifestyle so extreme that it would break most of us before breakfast. The bronze horn echoes across the valley as the first pale light touches Mount Taygetus. It's dawn in Sparta, and you're about to experience your first day as a citizen of the most militaristic society in human history. But before we dive into your hypothetical day, let's understand what made Sparta so unique. Unlike Athens, with its philosophy and democracy, or Corinth with its trade and wealth, Sparta had one singular focus: war. Every institution, every law, every aspect of daily life was designed to create and maintain the most effective fighting force the ancient world had ever seen. The Spartans called their way of life the Agoge, a word that means leading or guidance. But this wasn't guidance in the way we might understand it today. This was a complete social system that took boys from their families at age 7 and didn't return them as full citizens until they were 30. Imagine that. 23 years of constant military training and conditioning. You wake up in the Syssitia, the communal mess hall where Spartan men ate and slept together. Your bed is nothing more than a thin mat on a hard wooden platform. There are no blankets, no pillows, no comfort of any kind. The Spartans believed that luxury made men weak, so they deliberately made their living conditions as harsh as possible. The temperature in the Laconian Valley can drop significantly at night, especially in winter. While you shiver in your thin cloak, your Spartan companions seem utterly unbothered. They've been conditioning their bodies to ignore discomfort since childhood. You realize that what you consider basic human needs, warmth, comfort, privacy, are seen here as weaknesses to be overcome. Your stomach growls as you join the line for breakfast. You're hoping for bread, maybe some cheese, perhaps olives. Instead, you're handed a bowl of what the Spartans call black broth, a mixture of pork, blood, vinegar, and salt. The smell alone makes you queasy. A visiting dignitary from Sicily once tasted this broth and declared that he now understood why Spartans weren't afraid to die in battle, because life itself was so unpleasant. But for the Spartans, this isn't a punishment. It's practicality. This broth can be made from basic ingredients. It's nutritious enough to fuel a warrior's body, and it can be prepared quickly, even during military campaigns. You take a tentative sip and immediately regret it. The taste is overwhelmingly metallic and sour. Around you, hardened warriors are consuming their portions with mechanical efficiency. Food, for them, is fuel, nothing more. The concept of eating for pleasure is foreign and dangerous. It represents the kind of soft living that makes men vulnerable. As you struggle with your breakfast, you begin to notice the complex social structure around you. Spartan society wasn't just about warriors. It was a carefully constructed pyramid with distinct classes, each with specific roles and privileges. At the top were the Spartiates, full Spartan citizens who had completed the Agoge and owned land. These were the elite warriors, the ones who could vote in the assembly and hold political office. Below them were the Perioeci, free inhabitants who weren't full citizens but could engage in trade and crafts. And at the bottom were the Helots, the enslaved population that outnumbered the Spartans by as much as 7-1. This last group is crucial to understanding Spartan society. The Helots were the reason Spartans could dedicate their entire lives to warfare. These enslaved people worked the land, produced goods, and essentially ran the economy while the Spartans trained for battle. But this relationship was built on constant tension and fear. The Helots vastly outnumbered their masters, and the Spartans lived in perpetual anxiety about potential uprisings. You notice how the Spartan warriors carry themselves even at breakfast, alert, watchful, ready for violence at any moment. This isn't paranoia. It's survival instinct, honed by necessity. A Spartan who let his guard down, even for a moment, might not live to see the next sunrise. After your unpleasant breakfast, you join the morning training session. The Agoge wasn't just military training. It was a complete reshaping of human nature. Boys entered this system at 7 years old and didn't graduate until they were 20. During those 13 years, they learned to endure pain, hunger, exhaustion, and fear as if they were natural states of being. The training ground is a dusty field outside the city walls. Here, young men practice with spears, shields, and swords under the watchful eye of older warriors. But this isn't the romanticized combat you might imagine from movies. This is brutal, repetitive conditioning designed to make violence as natural as breathing. You're handed a dory, a Spartan spear about 8 feet long. It's heavier than you expected, and after just a few minutes of holding it in the proper position, your arms are aching. The Spartan next to you has been holding his spear steady for an hour, his face showing no sign of strain. His muscles have been conditioned since childhood to handle this weight. The instructor begins teaching you the phalanx formation, the military tactic that made Sparta legendary. In the phalanx, warriors stood shoulder to shoulder, their large bronze shields overlapping to create an impenetrable wall. The spears projected forward in a deadly hedge of bronze points. But here's what the movies don't show you. Maintaining a phalanx formation requires incredible physical and mental discipline. You must stand perfectly still under the blazing Greek sun, wearing about 60 pounds of bronze armor, while enemy arrows rain down around you. You must trust completely in the man next to you, because if he breaks, the entire formation collapses. As you practice, you quickly realize that your individual strength or skill means nothing in a phalanx. What matters is your ability to move as one with your unit, to suppress your personal fears and instincts for the good of the group. The Spartans understood that battles aren't won by heroes. They're won by disciplined units fighting as a single organism. You try to maintain the formation, but your shield is slipping, your spear is wobbling, and you're already exhausted. The Spartan warriors around you seem like they could hold this position forever. They've been training for this specific moment since they were children, and their bodies and minds have been molded to excel at this one crucial task. As the morning training continues, you learn about one of Sparta's most disturbing institutions, the Crypteia. This was a secret police force made up of young Spartan men who had shown exceptional promise during their training. Their job was to roam the countryside, living off the land, and hunting down any helots who might be plotting rebellion. But the Crypteia wasn't just about maintaining order. It was about psychological conditioning. These young men were encouraged to kill helots who seemed too strong, too intelligent, or too influential. This wasn't considered murder. It was considered a necessary form of population control and warrior training. The instructor explains this to you matter-of-factly, as if describing a farming technique. In Sparta, moral considerations that might trouble other societies were secondary to military necessity. The Crypteia taught young warriors to kill without hesitation, to suppress empathy, and to view violence as a tool to be used whenever circumstances required it. You realize that you're not just learning to fight. You're being conditioned to think like a predator. The Spartans understood that creating effective warriors required more than physical training. They had to reshape the very psychology of their citizens, eliminating the natural human reluctance to kill and replacing it with cold, calculating efficiency. The afternoon training session focuses on physical conditioning, and this is where you truly begin to understand the gap between ancient and modern fitness. Spartan physical training wasn't about looking good or feeling healthy. It was about survival in an environment where weakness meant death. You're led to a series of exercises that would challenge even modern athletes. Long-distance running in full armor, swimming across cold mountain streams, climbing rocky cliffs with nothing but rope. Training. There's no warm-up, no cool-down, no concern for injury prevention. The Spartans believed that excessive talking was a sign of weakness and indiscipline. Warriors needed to be able to communicate essential information quickly and clearly, without wasting time on unnecessary words. This created a culture where silence was valued and eloquence was viewed with suspicion. When Philip II of Macedon sent a message to Sparta saying, "If I bring my army into your land, I will destroy your farms, slay your people, and raze your city," the Spartans replied with a single word, "if." This wasn't just wit. It was a perfect example of laconic philosophy. Why use many words when few would suffice? You try to adapt to this communication style, but you find it almost impossible. Modern conversation relies on elaboration, explanation, and social pleasantries. The Spartan way of speaking strips away all of these elements, leaving only the essential core of meaning. The helots you encounter aren't broken or defeated. They're survivors, people who have learned to navigate an impossible situation with intelligence and resilience. Some even serve as light infantry in Spartan armies, earning the possibility of freedom through military service. But even these opportunities come with deadly risks. Sometimes helots who had served bravely were executed afterward to prevent them from becoming too confident or influential. One of the most surprising aspects of your day comes when you encounter Spartan women. Unlike women in other Greek city-states, Spartan women enjoy freedoms that would be unthinkable in places like Athens. They own property, participate in physical training, and speak their minds with a directness that shocks visitors from other cultures. But this freedom comes with its own set of expectations and responsibilities. Spartan women are expected to produce strong sons for the state and to maintain the household while their husbands are away at war. They're trained to be as mentally tough as the men, capable of enduring loss and hardship without breaking. You overhear a conversation between two Spartan women discussing their sons' military training. There's no sentimentality, no expressed concern for their safety. Instead, they speak with pride about their boys' ability to endure pain and their progress in learning to fight. One woman mentions that her son was beaten severely during training, and she expresses satisfaction that he didn't cry. As evening approaches, you learn about Spartan marriage customs, and they're unlike anything you've ever encountered. Marriage in Sparta isn't about romance or personal fulfillment. It's about producing the next generation of warriors. The process is designed to ensure that only the strongest and most capable individuals reproduce. Spartan marriages often involve a ritualized form of bride capture, where the groom must prove his worthiness by taking his bride from her family. But this isn't actually about force. It's a ceremony that demonstrates the warrior's capability and determination. The bride, meanwhile, has been trained to evaluate her potential husband's fitness as a father for future warriors. What's particularly striking is how little time married couples spend together. Men live in communal barracks until they're 30, visiting their wives only occasionally, and often in secret. The goal isn't companionship, but reproduction. Children belong to the state first, to their families second. You realize that every aspect of Spartan society, even the most intimate relationships, has been organized around military necessity. Personal desires, individual happiness, and emotional fulfillment are secondary to the larger goal of maintaining military superiority. The Spartans use iron bars as currency instead of coins, making trade deliberately difficult and preventing the accumulation of portable wealth. This isn't accidental. It's designed to keep Spartans focused on their military duties rather than becoming distracted by commercial opportunities. The primary deity is Artemis Orthia, a goddess associated with hunting, warfare, and the protection of the young. Her temple is the site of brutal initiation rituals where young men are beaten bloody while trying to steal cheese from the altar. This isn't punishment. It's a sacred ceremony designed to teach pain tolerance and quick thinking under pressure. The Spartans also consult oracles before military campaigns. but their interpretation of divine will is always filtered through military pragmatism. The gods want Sparta to be strong, so anything that makes Sparta stronger must be divinely approved. It's a religious system that reinforces, rather than challenges, the military culture. As your day in Sparta continues, you begin to understand that the most profound difference between yourself and these ancient warriors isn't physical. It's psychological. The Spartans have undergone a process of mental conditioning that fundamentally altered their relationship with fear, pain, and death. As the day wears on, you begin to feel the enormous psychological pressure of living in a society where any sign of weakness can result in social exile or death. Every action is evaluated. Every word is weighed. Every moment is a test of your fitness to remain part of the warrior class. This pressure creates a kind of hyper-vigilance that would be exhausting for anyone raised in a different culture. You must constantly monitor your own behavior, suppress natural emotional responses, and maintain perfect composure regardless of circumstances. You watch as a young warrior receives news that his father has died in battle. His face shows no emotion. His voice remains steady. His posture doesn't change. Only the slight tightening around his eyes betrays any internal response. To show grief would be to show weakness. And weakness isn't tolerated in Spartan society. The Spartans have developed a philosophy that views suffering not as something to be avoided, but as something to be embraced. They believe that comfort makes men weak, that ease leads to corruption, and that the only path to strength is through deliberate hardship. This philosophy extends to every aspect of life. Food is deliberately unpalatable to teach discipline. Housing is deliberately uncomfortable to build endurance. Relationships are deliberately limited to prevent emotional dependency. Even pleasure is viewed with suspicion as a potential source of weakness. As your day in ancient Sparta draws to a close, you join the evening meal in the Syssitia. The food is, once again, the infamous black broth, along with small portions of bread and cheese. The conversation is minimal, focused on practical matters of training and military planning. You sit among warriors who have lived this life for decades, men who have been shaped by this system from early childhood. They seem content, even happy, but their happiness is of a type that's difficult for modern minds to understand. It's the satisfaction of perfect integration into a larger purpose, the peace that comes from never having to question your role or purpose in life. But as you listen to their quiet conversations, you also sense the enormous sacrifices this system requires. These men have given up individual ambition, personal relationships, emotional expression, and countless other aspects of human experience that other cultures consider essential to a fulfilling life. As night falls over the ancient city, you reflect on what you've experienced during your day as a Spartan. You've witnessed a society that achieved military effectiveness through total social engineering, creating warriors who were genuinely superior to their contemporaries in combat, but limited in almost every other aspect of human development. The Spartan system worked, but only in the narrow sense of producing military victory. It created men who could stand in a phalanx formation under impossible conditions, who could endure pain and hardship without breaking, who could kill without hesitation when circumstances required it. But it also created a society that was ultimately unsustainable. The Spartan population declined over time, partly because the system was so demanding that many couldn't survive it, and partly because the focus on military excellence left little room for the kinds of social and economic development that might have ensured long-term survival. The Spartans weren't just tough. They were the products of a social system that reshaped human nature itself. They created individuals who were, in many ways, no longer recognizable as the same species as the rest of humanity. They were human beings who had been transformed into something else, perfect instruments of war. As you close your eyes in the Spartan barracks, listening to the quiet breathing of warriors around you, you realize that this journey has revealed something important about human nature and social organization. The Spartans proved that human beings are infinitely adaptable, that the right conditioning can create almost any type of person a society needs. But they also proved that this adaptability comes with a price. The Spartan system created extraordinary warriors, but it did so by eliminating much of what makes life worth living. It achieved military effectiveness through human sacrifice on a scale that's difficult for modern minds to comprehend. The Spartans remind us that efficiency isn't the same as wisdom, that effectiveness isn't the same as virtue, and that survival isn't the same as flourishing. They created a society that was perfect for its narrow purpose, but ultimately couldn't adapt to changing circumstances. Your day as a Spartan ends as it began, with the sound of the bronze horn echoing across the valley. But now you understand that this sound represents more than just a wake-up call. It's the voice of a society that chose to sacrifice almost everything human in pursuit of military perfection. The Spartans achieved their goal. They created the ancient world's most effective military force. But in doing so, they created a society that was, in many ways, a magnificent failure. They showed us the ultimate limits of human conditioning and the terrible price of perfect efficiency. As you drift off to sleep, You carry with you the knowledge that human societies can achieve almost anything they set their minds to, but that the cost of such achievement is often higher than we imagine. The Spartans remind us that strength and weakness, success and failure, are often more closely related than we'd like to believe. And perhaps that's the most important lesson from your day in ancient Sparta, that the human capacity for adaptation is both our greatest strength and our greatest vulnerability. We can become almost anything, but we should always ask ourselves whether what we're becoming is truly worth the price we're paying to get there. Sleep well, and be grateful for the soft bed, the warm blankets, and the simple freedom to be imperfect that the Spartans never knew.